The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government in what we were tasked to do.
Obviously, we over budgeted last year. I hate to say that I was right, but I was right. So.
And I think that that's what we need to look at more, is trying to get back to what we used to be, where our churches and our families took care of each other instead of relying on the state.
And we have no way to maintain control over the spending of this program, and it will be a disaster for this state long term.
But we have a whole gamut of kids whose parents would like to do something for them and they cannot.
I take our constitutional rights, the constitutional rights of my constituents, very seriously.
This is simply about putting it out of reach of young, innocent, vulnerable children and making our libraries and schools a safe place for them to go.
And I am increasingly frustrated that we cannot stop ourselves from drinking at the public trough.
He's sounding the alarm. He's saying if we don't address these issues, we potentially might have greater problems moving forward.
Mr. Speaker, no matter how you look at it, no matter how you boil this down, there is never any time that a parent's right to govern what their children see and what they're exposed to should ever be bypassed.
If I was looking at a business and I was looking at these figures, there would be heads rolling because this is unsustainable.
We're supposed to be bottom-up government. We're supposed to be representing my citizens' ideas and your citizens' ideas, and we're supposed to be discussing them and debating them to come to a conclusion.
We need to start making Idaho first. We need to start making America first.
We need to be protecting our First Amendment rights, not inventing ways to slowly chip away at them.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
Bills 1107, 1108, 1109, and 1110 will be filed for the second reading calendar. Senate Bill 1013, 1012, 1062 referred to the Commerce, Resource and Conservation Committee. Senate Bill 1044 and 1069.
Well, good morning, folks. It's 10:33 up north, 11:33 down there at the Capitol. We are just watching the House floor get underway. They'll be flying through a lot of bills, a lot of procedural bills, a lot of that stuff on the docket today. That's what they're going through over in the Senate as well. One of the bills we're going to be paying attention to today is House Bill 158. If they get to it on the floor, and it looks like the debate is heated for some reason, we'll cover it. But House Bill H 158 will allow for the protection of sources that reach out to the media for some reason within the state. It looks like we might need to have some more protections for media who have sources coming at them to deliver information. So we definitely is a First Amendment thing, a First Amendment right for journalists and reporters and such to protect their sources for information. And so we'll keep a close eye on that bill as well. But well, welcome everybody. Yesterday, after we went off the air, the House did go back in session and they took up a bunch of bills. One of them was House Bill 230, which would put restrictions on indecent sexual exhibition shows, burlesque shows, strip teases, dancing, inappropriate drag shows, things like that may happen in front of minors, in front of children. And so that bill passed with a pretty good margin yesterday in the House. That's House Bill 230. So yeah, protecting minors from indecent sexual exhibitions. It now heads over to the Senate. The other bill that passed, if you guys want to refresh my memory, what was the other bill that passed yesterday? One of our producers was like, hey, this was a good bill that passed yesterday. Oh, yeah, the hospital bill. Now, for some reason, hospitals are completely exempt from property taxes. And And now that that bill passed yesterday, that would leave it up to the a different board or a different I forget what they call it, but what is it called? What is it called? Screw it. But certain hospitals may or may not be eligible to be exempt from property taxes. So there we go. Anyway, all right. Well, let's get over. Yeah, there it is. House Bill 130. Thank you, producers. The Board of Equalization, the county's Board of Equalizations. Okay, very good. What is that? Is that 153 in the House? Oh, it's 153, not 158. Okay. All right, guys, we're going. Hey, this is the 100th show. This is the 100th show. You'd think I'd have it all together by now, but I don't. But we'll get through it as we do always. Things are always fast and furious here. It's such a joy. You know, maybe we'll install a camera in here and to show you what happens before we go on the air, because between me and the producers and everybody else who's contributing to this program, I mean, you got files flying, you got recordings coming in, you've got all this stuff happening, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, we're 2 minutes to live, and it's like, okay, well, let's just do it. We'll just do it live. Okay. So where's my list? Speaking of just going here, what did we want to get to? I've got it. Yes, this morning in the House Health and Welfare Committee, I know a lot of people were up early watching this, House Bill 131. This would require that blood donors disclose whether or not they have taken an mRNA injection when they go to donate blood. That way the blood supply can be labeled with blood that has mRNA in it. And so obviously we are in a new world now where we still don't know the ramifications of mRNA, but a lot of people have a lot of questions. A lot of people have concerns about it, some more than others and others not at all. So this morning, Representative Chris Bruce, fantastic representative, a freshman, brought this bill. We watched some of the print hearing a couple of weeks ago, but now this bill had a full hearing this morning, and so we want to watch a little bit of Representative Chris Bruce present this bill to tell a little more about it.
131 is just a disclosure for an mRNA vaccination when you're donating blood. I know that there's been a lot of different questions, and so I'll answer those as they come up also after the testimony. But I look at this as more of adding to the consensus of what we're getting, more of like a pro-choice of what type of blood you can select. I'm not challenging the fact that they're testing or not testing. I'm not challenging whether it's safe or not safe. Being a leukemia survivor and asking for certain types of blood before, it's just something that I always believed was important, especially with what we're seeing, especially with like the Yale review that came out last week. So I'm just asking that you disclose it at the time that you've had an mRNA vaccination and they mark the blood, and that you're able to choose that for non-emergency situations. I want to clarify that as well. In an emergency situation, there'd be no way for you to choose whether you could have this blood or not. This is only for non-emergency situations. And I'm not saying that they have to provide it. If it is available and they can select it, then it's offered to them. But this doesn't hinder the ability to keep it in separate locations. It doesn't make them test the blood. It doesn't say it's more for just to.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. So that bill presented before the committee. There were some interesting exchanges back and forth. Like I said, it was a longer hearing this morning. Very, very well informed. A lot of folks on both sides of the issue. There were, I believe, the American Red Cross, a representative from the American Red Cross, the region's offices here, had concerns with, being able to properly identify the supply, especially if it comes from out of state where they don't do this yet. And so, these are the kind of bills that they sound like great right off the bat, but there's a lot of moving parts, especially when you're dealing with emergency situations in the blood supply across the country. So we want to be able to get this right, folks. We want to be able to have people have informed consent and be able to get this right. So with that, there was an exchange from Representative Furryman with Representative Chris Bruce that we found is almost like the key question here. So let's watch this.
Doesn't really make sense in my head that an mRNA vaccine is somehow still in your blood forever, like that we're choosing the genetic makeup of the blood, and that we're saying, I don't want that blood because it's been tainted with a vaccine that happened 10 years ago, potentially. We don't really know. And are we going down that path of saying, we're going to pick and choose the genetic makeup of the person who donated our blood? Like, I don't see where an mRNA vaccine changes the blood. I don't understand. And I would love for you to teach me.
Representative Bruce.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Furman, I think you said that. You said we don't know, right? You said we don't know how long it stays in your blood, or how, I mean, if you look at some of the tests before. But I think there's going to be people on both sides, people that take your opinion where they don't see any value in it, right? And it's not going to affect their lives. But there are a good consensus of people who do and who are concerned about it. And I think that we should open it up to those folks and not downplay their concerns.
Yeah, very well put there. Very, very well put. I mean, this is the whole point here. Everybody thinks that there's not a lot of people that are concerned about this, and when you're not concerned about it, you don't really pay attention to it too much. But it's obviously a lot of concern because there's a lot of folks on this particular bill. There's people who have been elected promising to do something about these types of situations. About these. I mean, we saw Senator Shippey. We played the whole hearing last week. Senator Shippey just trying to find a moratorium on actually even administering this gene therapy, this mRNA gene therapy stuff. So it is a big topic, and we're going to keep on it here. One interesting thing to note: there was a gentleman here who represented Vitaliant, I think it's called Vitaliant, but they're a blood donor. They do blood donations around the state here, and so they testified in opposition to this bill and had an interesting exchange here with the Democrat Ilana Rebell. Let's watch that.
I think I inferred these. So, follow up, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'm envisioning something like milk. Where would you get milk? It might be from who knows how many cows. Is it like that? I mean, when you get a blood transfusion, might the blood you get be coming from 5 or 6 different people, or am I inferring that right?
Mr. Garrick.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Representative Rubel, depending on how many transfusions a patient receives, yes, a patient would receive donated blood from multiple individuals. Trauma victim can require up to 100 units of blood to replace their blood volume, multiple times during a traumatic event like that. So yeah, potentially 100 different donors can help save that patient's life.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I understood her question there. She was trying to figure out whether or not, when the blood donor centers collect blood, does it all go into like one big vat of blood, per blood type, like you would milk from cows, and then it's just dispersed in individual units everywhere? It sounded to me as though that the doctor there was saying that the unit itself may come from one individual, but if you required 100 units, it may come from multiple different people. So anyway, the bill did pass out of committee, and it will head to the floor for further debate. And then, of course, if it passes there, it'll head over to the Senate for consideration over there. Real quickly, let's go to the House right now, if you can. They're voting on the House Bill 158, which gives protections to journalists. Look at that, a clean sweep. Has everybody showed up for work today? One absent, Miss Green. Representative Green is not in the chamber today, but the House Bill 158.
And I, one absent, excused, majority having voted in favor of House Bill 158.
There we go. All right, very good. Good news for us journalists out there with sources. I've got some sources, and I will protect their sources. We're going to take a short break. We will be back, and I believe Brian Allman is waiting in the wings as well, so get ready for that. We'll be right back.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government and what we were tasked to do.
Idaho is the dirt under your fingernails after an honest day's work. Idaho is the hug around your neck when your daughter spells her first word. Idaho is the written word of the law, steadfast and impartial, guarding liberty for all. Idaho is the family rifle passed down, a legacy of protection and the right to stand firm. Idaho is the echo of your own voice, unshaken and free, standing tall among the world. silenced. Idaho is the home that's built to weather storms, not empty wallets. Idaho is the quiet trust between a patient and healer, unbroken and sacred. Idaho is the hymn carried by the Spirit, gathering neighbors together in faith and purpose. Idaho is the laughter around a campfire, a family's bond growing stronger with every word. Idaho is the pioneer's will, firm and clear. We govern ourselves, free and unbound. Idaho is what America was. Let's keep it that way. Ask your legislator to sign the Citizens Alliance of Idaho pledge to preserve our shared values. We ride together.
We have a voicemail that we want to share with you. This is our 100th episode, and it's perfect timing because we have a voicemail from Jenny, who I know has been watching since episode 1. So thank you, Jenny. Let's hear from Jenny.
Hi, Matt. This is Jenny from Post Falls, and I just love your program, especially this year where you've got Brian Allman, who is so even-keeled and logical. And then I also totally love Lily's videos. They just crack me up. And I also wanted to talk about engaging people. I find that one of my goals is to educate people about the legislature, and I started something called the Idaho Bill Alert, which is a Telegram group that I make it really easy for people to learn about bills and up in November 2026, where we can really impact what happens in the legislature by those that we elect, since they represent us. You know, I see as I'm looking at the bills that a lot of the representatives and senators, they've already decided how they're going to vote. Maybe there's a bill where they're not really sure, but you know, they represent us and we know where they stand by their platform. So I'm hoping to encourage my friends doing what they're doing now, but even more so, finding a candidate that you really support. Donate money, donate your time, put a sign in your yard, get on social media and support them, because who is in those seats really makes a difference. So thanks, Matt, for all you do and all those of you guys behind the scenes, and keep up the good work. Thanks. Bye.
Hey, well, thank you, Jenny. Jenny from Kootenai County, Post Falls, fantastic. Folks, we love those emails. Keep them coming in, 208-402-4915, and we'll play it on the air here. Excellent. Okay. Sorry, it cut off there in the middle, but that's wireless technology for you. So if I can get a wireless provider to sponsor the show, then maybe that'll happen. But apologies there, but we got all her message out. Very good. She had some very kind words for not only for me, I'll take it, but for the show and everybody behind the scenes here. But of course for Brian Allman himself. Brian, good to see you, buddy.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty well. Yeah, people, I get it all the time. Man, I'm so glad you got Brian Allman on the show. That's really good. You know,
I'm flattered.
Yeah, it must be the perfect dome. You've got the perfect dome for TV. By the way, Brian, you know, people call this a podcast. I get it. You know, podcast is the big thing these days, but we were looking at our numbers, and this program, if you're watching on YouTube, more people watch it on their TV if you're watching on YouTube than they do on their mobile devices or their computer. So I think we're officially a TV program now. So
the ultimate goal of programs like this, or you know, a lot of the different conservative media outlets, is to provide a viable alternative to the mainstream media. Instead of tuning into KTVB Channel 7 in Boise to hear their interpretation of what happened, you can come to a show like this and see it as it's happening, hear from the legislators themselves, watch actual clips, and I think it can be a valuable resource.
Yes. And so here we are on our 100th episode. Fantastic. Okay, well, let's get back to business then. You and I both were watching what was going on in in the House Ways and Means Committee this morning, and so guys, we're gonna jump around here a little bit real quick because Brian was kind enough to watch all that stuff too.
I'm only halfway through Ways and Means because
you're only halfway. Well, we'll start. Well, here's the interesting thing I want to play. Let's watch Kevin Andrus present this bill about our U.S. senators. We don't talk about our federal delegation too much on this program, but this is an important thing that happened today in the House Ways and Means Committee. Let's watch this clip.
Representative Kevin Andrus, District 35, here to introduce RS 32374. This deals with vacancies of U.S. senators, bringing them in line with the process for U.S. representatives, which is triggering a special election. And with that, I'd ask for your support and introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Committee, any questions? Or Representative Birch?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative, so I'm looking at the language that's struck out here, and it says here, however, in the case a vacancy occurs in the position of senator within 30 days of any general election, no election for United States senator to fill such vacancy shall be held at such general election, which is news to me. So I'm kind of interested. Would this change? What would actually happen if there was a vacancy, like within a month of or so of an actual general election? I'm just trying to play out the scenarios here. I don't have an objection to this. I'm really just trying to understand what that would actually look like.
Representative Andrus.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Birch, Representative Tanner may have more insight, but I believe it would just go to an election unless we'd have to go look at 34-106. But if it could still get onto the election, the general election, it'll do that. Otherwise, it'll have to trigger a new one.
Representative Tanner.
Yes, for motion, and then I'll just clarification.
Okay, go ahead.
Move to introduce RS 32374.
Okay, wish to speak to that?
Yeah, I was going to speak to that motion. Just for clarification on, so if you go within that, so you're striking that one section out, but within 34-106 actually gives very specific details of the process that actually goes out. So this just is exactly what happens within the representatives, and we're just making sure that the Senate is brought in line with that.
Yeah, there we go, Brian. So right now, if a congressman, there's a vacancy during the congressman's term, it triggers a special election. But apparently, for the Senate, that doesn't happen.
Right, and that really goes back to the difference between the House and the Senate originally in our Constitution that our founding fathers made. The House was elected by the people. The Senate was elected by state legislatures because the senators were originally supposed to represent the states in Congress. So 17th Amendment passes in 1913. Idaho Senator William Borah was a big supporter of that. Take that away from the legislature and give that power to the people as well. But there still remained some quirks in law like this. If there's a vacancy in the House, well, obviously you have a special election because people in the House are elected. If there's a vacancy in the Senate, well, how do you do that? And other states have done it differently. Sometimes the governor appoints it. Sometimes the legislature does. Sometimes it is a special election. So this really just, I guess, catches us up to the 20th century and allows the people to fill that seat. And considering the average age in the U.S. Senate is, like 105, it's a good thing to keep aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm no fan of the 17th Amendment. I actually think that it took a lot of the power away from the states when the state legislatures could no longer appoint who their senator is. But in this case, with it currently being in the hands of the governor, of one man, with no say, this just creates, and we've seen this all the time, it just creates a scenario where if you appoint someone during someone else's term, that person immediately starts to serve, and then they immediately become the incumbent, and they have a huge advantage when it comes to the next election cycle, whenever that would be, because everybody gets used to just seeing that person as our senator. And so I think, and unfortunately, we've seen a lot of careers being made by appointments. I mean, people being appointed to this position, and then they run, and then they get appointed to this position, and then they run again, and you can never get them out of office because they keep getting appointed. And the people and the electorate, sadly, is not paying as close attention as you and I and our viewers are, and so you end up just sticking with the incumbent. I mean, the incumbent normally has a 95% success rate when being elected. So I imagine there's going to be some pushback among the establishment on this, perhaps, but I think where we are right now, I think this is a good bill. So it'll be interesting to see it go through. Yeah,
it's seems reasonable to me. If we elect senators, then we should have special elections for senators.
That's right. Very good. Okay. The other thing that happened this morning was very interesting. Was Representative. Well, let's do this. Representative, just to get your take on this, especially in the spirit of Doge, right? Representative Cornell Razor, up from Boundary and Bonner County, wanted to just do a slight change with some of the way money is spent in this state with a particular department. Let's watch this.
Chairman, committee. I'm Cornell Razor, representing District 1, Bonner and Boundary counties. This is a simple bill. Currently, the Idaho Housing and Finance Association oversees state, private, and federal assistance programs. This would place any federal grants through that program under the purview of JFAC, the Idaho budgeting process.
Thank you, Representative. Any questions for the sponsor or Representative Keeley's?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Razor, what problem are we trying to solve with this?
Representative Razor.
Mr. Chairman, committee, I believe it's not a problem. It's just a matter of making certain that every penny that goes through the state is under the purview of the state finance, JFAC, the financing process.
Representative Tanner.
For motion.
Motion's in order.
All right, makes sense to me on the surface, right, Allman?
Oh, for sure. And this is one of those little things that is chipping away at the established bureaucracy and their outsized power rather than our elected representatives. JFAC is supposed to appropriate money, whether it's state money or federal money, to all the various state agencies. But then these agencies can go get grants. They can apply for federal grants to do this or that. And as we saw over the last 4 years of the Biden administration, a lot of those grants were to fund things that we would consider, not the proper scope and role of government. So this would just bring those grants, at least in some areas, under the purview of JFAC, so that our elected representatives would have to sign off on them before they just get our federal tax dollars into these agencies to do with as they would.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny how like these people, they especially the legislators, you will hear them all the time say, well, that's federal money. We don't have to worry about it. It's federal money. We don't have to account for it. We don't have to like blah blah blah. Like I don't know about you, Brian. I still pay federal taxes. It's still our money. And I mean, absolutely. If there's federal grants coming into this program, or coming into this state, going to agencies for a program that JFAC or the legislature has no idea what it's for, we need to know that. We need to know that. So very good. I'm with you on that one. All right. The other one that happened that we found interesting this morning was Representative Dale Hawkins showed up with a bill on immigration, which this felt like a big hammer, especially in light of some immigration policies or legislation that was introduced late last week, which I know you wrote about and had an article up. So let's watch Representative Hawkins very briefly present what this bill would do, and then again another interesting exchange with the Democrats on this. If you guys can just play that back to back, that'd be great.
So I'm here with this morning. This bill makes it illegal in Idaho for anyone to knowingly help, hide, or transport individuals that are in the United States illegally. Basically, this brings us into line with what the current administration is trying to accomplish across our country. And I'm just hoping for an introduction. There is some light changes. I met with the Germain chairman, and there were some changes he would have liked to have seen, and they are on the floor here. So,
Chairman, Representative Hawkins, what input did you get from representatives of the agricultural community here in Idaho on this proposed legislation?
Representative Hawkins.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Birch, I did not.
Representative Rubel.
For a question, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Representative Hawkins. You mentioned that you were just seeking an introduction. Is it not your intention to try to seek a hearing on the merits on this bill this year?
Representative Hawkins.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Rebel, of course I want a hearing on this.
Representative Rebel.
Thank you. So, just to clarify, so you anticipate that there will be a full hearing on this, or that's the communications you've had?
Representative Hawkins.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Rebel, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Representative. Committee, we have a
all right, so that bill went through as well. But Almond, I find it fascinating that this idea, like we want to make sure that no one is harboring or aiding and abetting illegal aliens. And then the first question from the Democrats is, have you talked to anybody in the ag industry about this? And he's just like, no.
Yeah, there's this assumption within kind of the establishment in Idaho that we just have to accept that the ag industry needs a lot of foreign workers, including illegal aliens. As I keep repeating, the dairymen's industry lobbyist last year said that up to 70% of their workers would probably or possibly fail an audit of their citizenship papers, which means up to 70% of their workers could possibly be illegal aliens who are not actually authorized to work here. And their solution is to just legalize them. Well, they're already here, they're already working. Let's just sign off and make them allow them to work. And that's not what we voted for on November 5th last year.
No, not at all. In the direct opposite. And this is what we want to see happen. I mean, these are the type of bills that we want to see happen. Real briefly though, the article that you did publish most recently on this issue, walk us through a little bit on what you were analyzing.
So last week, Representative Jaron Crane introduced a bill that would create an Idaho guest worker program that would include allowing undocumented workers, illegal aliens, to apply to be guest workers under this program. Now, I spoke to him. He says it's not really intended to go anywhere. The point is to get the attention of the federal government so that they can fix the immigration system, because immigration really is controlled at the national level. It's controlled by the federal government. They decide how the guest worker programs work, the H-2B or H-2A, H-1B visa programs, and all those things. And our dairy industry right now is not eligible for H-2A visas because it's for temporary work. It's for seasonal work, picking apples, picking fruit, picking potatoes, not milking cows, which happens year round. And the dairy industry has been calling for some form of reform so that they can have guest workers all year long on this sort of visa. And so that's their perspective. But then there's another perspective that says, wait a second, should we be encouraging more foreign workers? And that's my perspective. I'm saying maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we should encourage more Americans to work these jobs. When they say that these are jobs Americans won't do, what they're really saying, in my opinion, is that these are jobs Americans won't do for the wages we offer. And they'd rather go through the whole rigmarole of the paperwork and lobbying in order to have these visa programs, in order to have what seems to be cheaper labor. Why not just, instead of investing in all that, just raise your prices so that Americans are willing to do the job?
Yeah, and Almond, we kept hearing all last year that this isn't cheap labor. It costs us a lot of money. It costs us a lot of money to bring them over here and to pay for this and to pay for that and to pay for their housing and to have cars and planes and all these things. It's like, what are you talking? Like, okay, so is it cheap labor or is it not? And if it's costing you way more, then just hire American. I'll tell you what, Brian, when I drove out to, I posted this on X, when I drove out from Boise to Idaho Falls, I took 84 and 15, 80, whatever that stretch is across the entire farmland of Idaho down there. I didn't see one billboard. I didn't see one sign recruiting American workers to go work in these dairy farms and work in the ag industry, even after we know that Tom Homan and the Trump administration is going to be rounding up as many of these illegal aliens as possible and making it harder for them to come here. So you people in that industry, you need to get out there and you need to start training people and offering jobs and getting ready, because a lot of these people are not going to be here anymore, and you're going to be on the hook for and you don't want your business to fail, right? I mean, it's not like they can protest and say, okay, we're not going to hire Americans, we're just not going to, you're going to lose money as well. So we got to get on the I don't know what the full answer is, but we got to get on the right board, and the full answer is the answer can't be just hiring more illegal workers or making it easier for that to happen. So you're exactly right, Almond. Great article over there. We'll make sure to repost it and link it out there. Excuse me. All right. It looks like both the House and the Senate have adjourned, at least for now. They may pick it up later today. And we do want to take a quick break. We do expect Representative Rob Beiswinger to join us. He presented a bill this morning on collective bargaining with the firefighters union. I don't know if you saw any of that, Alman, but we're going to have him on. We'll get his take on what that's all about. But let's take a quick break. And Alman, when we come back, let's talk about this whole, there's a bill out there to introduce electronic driver's license that you can have on your phone. So we'll take a short break. We'll be right back.
And that's exactly what happened. You want to pull the tape? You can pull the tape because we now got video.
The dictionary defines a pledge as something that you give as a sign that you'll keep a promise. As Idahoans, that's what we're looking for in our elected leaders. A sign that they'll keep their word. Talk is cheap, and so are political promises, hidden agendas, and special interests. This is why we created the Citizens Alliance of Idaho Pledge, affirming the values Idahoans have been living by for over 100 years, inspired by the only two documents everyone has agreed to live by. So when an Idaho legislator signs our pledge, inviting voters to publicly hold them accountable, that's what we call political integrity. The pledge restores trust and honesty between voters and their legislators. It means protecting our shared values and ensuring your voice is heard in Boise. And that is priceless. Thank your legislator for having the political courage to sign the Citizens Alliance of Idaho Pledge. And if they haven't, it's time to ask why.
Folks, it's time to ask them why they won't sign the pledge. They won't sign the pledge. Okay. All right, Alman. So this morning, this was yesterday, actually. This was yesterday in the House Transportation Committee. Representative Mickelson, Stephanie Mickelson, has this bill that will set up a system where you have electronic on your phone, you have your driver's license on your phone, your ID. That way, if you get pulled over by police, you can present your phone, and they have an app on their phone, and they tap it or whatever, and they can verify your information. And so, sure, I mean, is that the way our society is going? It sounds like that way, but there's still a lot of great questions that are to be had about this. And a lot of those came from Representative Kyle Harris, who's on that committee. So let's watch this exchange.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Nicholson, on page 6, line 36 to 38, you mentioned that this would not be used for voting or whatnot, but it says clearly at the end there that it shall be capable of being displayed on a wireless communication device and shall be deemed a valid driver's license for all purposes under Idaho code. So technically, by that statement, my assumption would be that they could use this as an ID to vote, if that's the way it's written, correct?
Representative Mickelson, if you want to explain.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Harris, actually what happened is when we came with the fix for that, I think we were all a little asleep that afternoon, but because this bill had passed, I requested a hearing on this one, but I think Representative Petsky has a solution for that very problem, because I want to make people feel very good and secure about that.
You can go ahead and talk about the amendment if you'd like that you were going to request.
Yeah, so the amendment that we have a motion for and we're going to request is simply that when you're voting that you're required to carry your plastic paper copy, that the mobile driver's license will not be a form of identification for voting.
Did you have another question, Representative Harris?
I do have another question, Mr. Chair. Thank you. On same page, line 42, it says a person or entity that seeks to view an individual's electronic driver's license for identity or age verification purposes shall access only the identity elements necessary for the transaction or purpose prompting the request through the authenticator that validates these elements against digital trust services. So are we now require businesses that take ID, like gun shops or bars or any of these places, are we going to require them to have an app if somebody's not carrying their real ID? Do they just turn away the customer, or are they going to have to pay to download some app to scan these new digital IDs?
Representative Mickelson.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Harris, actually the apps to read that and to get that information are 100% free. So they're
Okay, we can jump out of this because they lost sight of the question here, Allman. The fact that the app is free. Like, I don't care about the app, but like if people are expecting this digital ID to work, and you go to a bar or you go to a convenience store or something where you're required to show your ID for something, and they don't have the app or they don't have the device, or you're at a county fair and they don't have those things set up, can they just deny you? I mean, this is. I think we're still in the baby stages of these digital ID passport type things. I'm not a huge fan of it right now, especially when we heard a question later that I'll get your take on. But where are you sitting right now with this?
I'm going to take a slightly contrary position to a lot of conservatives on this. I think this is inevitable, and it's also convenient.
It is too.
So the question is, how do we do it right? Because already. I have my phone and I can take this to, say, the grocery store or to McDonald's or to, a bunch of other places, coffee shops, and pay with payment methods that are stored on the phone. I don't have to whip out my credit card. And in fact, the, Apple Pay or Android Pay or Google Pay, whatever it is, in some ways, it's actually more secure than swiping a credit card used to be. You used to swipe it and it would literally just transmit your credit card number to the merchant. Whereas on the phone, it transmits a hashed code of your number that then the other side can verify with your bank. So it's actually a more secure transaction. Now, a lot of people are still nervous about that, and they prefer to use physical cards, and that's fine. I believe moving to some sort of digital ID is probably inevitable. So how do we make sure it's done right? Doing some sort of pilot program might be reasonable. Of course, like you said, what do you do if you're going to prove your age at a bar or something and they don't have the right thing? That's the sort of things that we need, I guess, to beta test to figure out where those incongruities and those that friction is going to be. But yeah, we should be very careful about it. But it's something that's coming. It's the sort of thing that'll probably be commonplace in another decade.
Yeah, perhaps. We don't have the clip, but there was a representative that said. What if you have a suspended license? Will that appear on your digital, And she actually said, yeah, it's better. It'll pop right up. It says that your license is suspended and there's nothing you can, and I'm just like, oh, great. And then when the social credit scores kick in and the ESG stuff kicks in and the government says you're not allowed to do that, they can just shut off your digital ID and you don't. I mean, look, this is the path that everybody's afraid of when you have when the government has full control of what's on your own phone, with your identification. So we'll have to keep tabs on that, Allman. But you're right. Something like this is inevitable, and we just need to get it right. Okay. We have Representative Rob Beiswinger on here. So Brian, let everybody know where we can follow you and keep tabs.
GemStateChronicle.com. Yesterday I wrote an article about guest workers and why we should maybe hire American. Gem State Chronicle or at Gem State Brian on Twitter. I'll continue following the legislature.
Okay, fantastic. We will see you again, Allman. Take care. All right. Well, this morning in let's see, what committee was this? State Affairs, everyone's favorite committee, House State Affairs. Representative Rob Beiswinger from Legislative District 8 was there to talk about collective bargaining. So he joins us now. There he is. Representative, good to see you. Walk us through a little bit about what collective bargaining looks like currently and why we would want to change this when it comes to the firefighters, at least.
Yeah, thanks, Matt, for having me on. So right now, collective bargaining, as defined by Idaho law for firefighters, they can negotiate every last thing that's part of their job. So they can negotiate, theoretically, they could negotiate the paint in the bathrooms, they can negotiate how many people are on staff at a time, what kind of equipment get used, not used. And so the bill introduced this morning, or the RS, that will now become a bill, it just says the firefighters can still negotiate on wages and hours, but that's it. We're not going to have them saying, union gets to weigh in on every little topic there. And if you go back in the day, like 70, 80 years ago, the original union organizers thought it was unthinkable that unions could be government employees at all. They said that was definitely something that would only, unionization would only apply to the private sector and not at all to the public sector. So we've gotten way far away from that over the years. Now, so really it's just, the fire, we're going to rein this kind of back in. They can still negotiate their wages. So I think it's really kind of a modest bill. But Utah, by comparison, just I think last week, eliminated, collective, or really we call it monopoly bargaining for union government employees. They eliminated that across the state, across all of it, firefighters, and they did not exempt wages like this bill does. So it's kind of a trend here, I guess, a little bit. We're trying, it results in more government efficiency, makes the fire departments, I think, a little more flexible and business friendly-ish, if that kind of makes sense, that they're going to, not have to, if they want to change something, they don't have to go into a 6-month negotiation on getting a new piece of equipment or a new change in status there. The staff can just implement it. So I think it's a really good bill.
Okay, so then explain to me, if you're saying we don't want to be getting into negotiations on every little detail, who then would be making those decisions, and why is it important that it's in the hands of the county or the city to make those negotiations with that particular? Because do these negotiations happen statewide, or do they usually happen within the municipalities themselves?
Yeah, they'd be done locally. Like Eagle, Idaho has a fire board that manages the fire department over there, and different places are going to do it differently. I mean, a lot of places have volunteer firefighters. There's no, I mean, I think in Horseshoe Bend, we don't have any paid firefighters that I'm aware of. So some places it's not going to really change for them, those places at all. Some places are going to have these boards that can be elected positions. So it's going to be a little bit different based on where you are and how that happens. But this will put, the elected officials will be accountable to the taxpayers and their constituents, and they'll have to work directly with them on how they treat their fire departments.
Right. Okay. Well, again, this was just an RS hearing, but we were watching the footage of we have it there. Quite an audience behind you there for a print hearing.
Yeah, I guess they're really excited to hear what I had to say. I guess the backstory is there. We didn't, they were here for another event. There's a dinner going on for legislators and firefighters tonight. I can't make it. I already have a commitment with my family, but yeah, so they were already in town, I guess, for it. And so this came up, and when you have an RS, all they can see is the title of the bill. There's no information given. So I think to them, honestly, I didn't detect any hostility, really. I think they were just kind of like concerned what's going on, and that kind of stuff. So I was kind of glad they got to sit in and hear on it, and they could, hear. I mean, it's a public hearing. It's televised on the internet and so forth. So kind of glad they got to hear, what I had to think.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So now that this bill is going to be printed and everybody's going to take a look at it, I mean, do you expect much pushback? I mean, like you said, you're not ending the bargaining when it comes to wages and that sort of thing, but I mean, I expect there's going to be some pushback.
When you ever make a change, it's going to make people uncomfortable, because they've got a certain way they're doing business in different places. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure somebody's going to, not like it, and that's fine. That's just part of, working down here. So we'll see how it goes. I think it's really a modest bill. It could go a lot, we could do a lot stronger bill, quite frankly. But I think we'll just start here and we'll see how the conversation goes. I think there's a lot of appetite for it in the House, and so I think, our chances are good to get it through, but, we'll see what they, answer the hard questions.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so shifting gears here real quick. Last Friday, the H-32, your bill that you shepherded through the House to end the or to end mask mandates, basically, and end the practice of arresting people for not wearing a mask in public. Exactly. It passed the Senate floor, and this is the first time that the governor will see a bill of this sort since the pandemic. And so you along with Senator Lenny, were able to get it through. That's not to say, the good folks before you didn't, they had different environment, let's just say, to try and get that through. But how does it feel? I mean, for us, it was a huge victory on our part, but we love seeing it going. But yeah, there's the Senate vote right there. What was your take on that?
I'm not over there too much. I'm just starting to do a little bit of hearings over there. I did one yesterday, and it's definitely a different environment, it's a different vibe over there, I guess I would say. So obviously you see one Republican voted no on it. I mean, they wouldn't even hear it. before they just shut it down over there. I mean, to me, it's mind blowing. I mean, this thing was so wrong. It was way overblown, and to throw people in jail for not wearing a mask just blows my mind that anyone would think that's okay. And to have this bill take so long to get done. I mean, I can maybe understand the first few months. You're kind of like, we're all trying to figure it out. But honestly, by 2021, we knew what was going on here. And so I'm glad I got to do the bill. It was fun for me. I loved the topic. It's important. I thought people need to know we're not going to let this happen again. And because I think it's on the table, quite frankly. These, Bill Gates and Fauci and these guys, their mindset hasn't changed. So I think if they had an opportunity, they would probably try it again. And who knows if a mask mandate would come again. And you've got cities like Boise who are literally willing to fine people, tens of thousands of dollars for not enforcing it, not just encouraging it. I mean, I don't mind the city or whoever wants to come out and say, hey, what we're seeing come down the road here looks really dangerous. I urge you to do X, Y, and Z. That's fine. We can just talk to each other as adults without throwing someone in jail over wearing a mask. And, anyway, I could talk about that all day, I guess. But yeah, pretty excited about it. Now it's up over to the governor's office, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Any indication so far? We're gathering more support, sending it to the governor's way on our end. But do you have any indication what's going on up there on the second floor?
I really haven't heard. I mean, just in general, asking. He seems to be pretty quiet on legislation as it goes through, and then kind of waits for it to hit his desk and then do stuff on it for the most part. But to me, I mean, you saw one Republican in the Senate voted against it, only a handful in the House. I mean, huge majorities passed this. I think he's going to sign it or let it go into law somehow. I would think. But
yeah,
don't hesitate to call him. Let him know.
That's right, folks. 208-334-2100. Call the governor's office. All right, Representative. Well, I thank you for taking the time. We're going to keep tabs on this collective bargaining. I think this is a big deal. This would be a big deal for our state if this can go through. We're, like you said, we saw stuff like this in Utah. We're seeing it in other states as well. And so that's really great. All right. Well, where can people follow you? Where can people keep tabs on your work and support what you're doing?
Well, I mean, I guess the campaign website's still up there, Idaho, the number 4 Rob .com, Idaho for Rob. I'm on Twitter quite a bit now. I guess that's, ever since Elon Musk has taken over, it's made it quite the political chat. It's really probably the best one out there that I can think of. So I post there quite a bit, and there's a lot of, multiple, people, blast out other things we're doing here. Facebook, you can look there too. Same thing, Idaho for Rob. And I think it's just my name, Rob Bison, on Twitter. So you can just follow that on there. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you.
All right, fantastic. We'll get back to it, and we'll check in with you again.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate
All right, take care. All right, very good, everybody. Apologies out there if my video quality or our audio quality having a little technical difficulties today, but we'll get through it. It's our 100th show. The hamsters are overworked. Our 100th program. Yeah, folks, there's the governor's number. It's 208-334-2100. We're still trying to help Major David Worley get reinstated at the National Guard. So, you got a laundry list of things you want to talk to the governor about. You do that. So give him a call. Give him a call. And go back and if you go to our Rumble page, I think that the pinned video is our interview with Major Worley's counsel over at Liberty Counsel. His lawyers there about his case. So you can get the full details on what that's all about over there. But that's still the governor's office. So please do call the governor and tell him to sign H32, the mask mandate bill. That is what we're here for. This is Idaho Signal. We have to send the signal. None of the noise. We're not focused on the noise. We're focused on the signal. And the signal right now is to call the governor's office and have him sign H32. So let's do that. Okay. One thing that we haven't really touched upon on this program so far, this session, is the elections and election integrity. And we've seen a couple of bills come through, and we're still paying attention to those. But one of the big fixes that needs to happen in our code is to streamline the process of making sure that the ballots themselves are secure. And one of the ways that Idaho tried to implement this before was to have unique identifiers on each individual ballot, that each ballot would be unique and have its own unique identifier. Representative Steve Tanner, the freshman out of Nampa, District 13, presented a bill last week, and we wanted to just share it with you. So here's some of that.
Basically, what this legislation does, it provides parameters and options. It does two things. It provides parameters and options in order for identifying authentic ballots at the ballot box and in order to mitigate potential voting and ballot fraud. So one of the things it does is that it cleans up some references, some language, references to technology that's no longer being used in Idaho at all. So we want to take that out. And you can see that on page 1, line 20. It refers to optical scanners. Optical scanners are no longer being used, and also about unique markings. The second thing it does is that since this bill was last modified back in 2013, there's been new technologies have been introduced into how we do voting here in Idaho, and particularly in respect to what we call unique identifiers. And so what this bill does, it provides some parameters and some guidance about if we're going to use those, what are the guidelines for using that. The other, I can go into detail if you like, but if you just kind of the high level.
We've already seen an RS very similar.
All right, very good. So that actually was the print hearing. That actually wasn't the actual hearing that happened, because when the hearing did happen, there were many clerks there from the counties that showed up in support of this and also offered their perspectives on it, because some counties don't have the technology to create those stamps. And so, I imagine a day where either A, we do what Trump has been out there saying, that we do all paper ballots, all one-day voting, and be done with it, with hand counting and all that. Or we use these unique identifiers on the ballots that don't tell you who the voter is, but that that the ballot is real, that it was it's tied to an actual vote, a voter, but not the voter, but a voter, a legal voter. And that it can be uniform across the board. I think that is a proper role of government. I think whatever amount of money it takes within reason to secure that, I think that is a worthy cause, and that is what we need to do to protect our republic. Okay, last clip we want to get to, so we don't have any leftovers like that one was about 2 weeks ago in the House Health and Welfare Committee. There was a big hearing on Representative Jordan Redmond's bill to remove soda and candy, the sort of junk food, from the things that you can buy with your food stamps, with your SNAP benefits. And so there was a whole hearing on that back in 2 weeks ago. And at the time, the committee agreed, and they made a motion to hold the bill and not do anything with it for another 2 weeks. So we are at that 2-week marker, and here's how it went this morning.
Bill 109 is, again, asking our Director of Health and Welfare to submit a waiver to USDA requesting that soda and candy would be removed from our SNAP program. This is part of a national movement, the MAHA movement, the Make America Healthy Again movement. I think that we have a new Health and Human Services Secretary, Bobby Kennedy, who has spoken in favor of this multiple times. In a recent interview on Fox News, he said, the one place I would say we need to really change policy is in the SNAP program, food stamps, and school lunches. There, the federal government, in many cases, is paying for it, and we shouldn't be subsidizing people to eat poison. Our new USDA Secretary, Brooke Rollins, said the taxpayers are putting money into SNAP, and if they're okay with using tax dollars to feed really bad and sugary drinks children who perhaps need more nutritious foods. There's massive questions we're going to be asking and working on in the coming months. So I think that our federal government is really looking at this, and I'm asking for this committee and our state to move forward and help make Idaho healthy again by pulling out soda and candy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, very good, very good. Well, that bill did pass 8-7. So by one vote, that bill ended up passing, and it will head to the floor for some more debate. on making Idaho healthy again. Very good. Okay. The other thing that happened, we're not going to show the clip today. We'll get to it next time. But in light of the interview that we had with Representative Redmond yesterday on the whole Medicaid expansion thing, a bill came in today that he presented to change up that bill, and it has, he says it has nothing to do with what happened over the weekend, and we believe him because it takes a while to get these RSs and all these bills printed and everything. But they made some changes to the bill that the Medicaid expansion guardrails was intending to do. So after the debate, after it passed the House, it looked like it was going to have some trouble in the Senate. So rather than try and see it die over there, they said let's work on it a little bit together. So they did do some changes. We'll cover that tomorrow, but you can the bill did get printed, so it should be up there as well. Later today in the House Judiciary and Rules Committee, that starts in about an hour from now, House Bill 270, I believe, 270 is the indecent exposure bill. So this one deals with adding the language that if you're a biological man with and you show your breasts that have been augmented to appear like a woman's, that you could be cited for indecent exposure. This is the idiocracy bills that we're in. This is the world that we live in, that we have to write language like this within our statutes. So that's happening. That's happening today, I believe. Yeah, House Bill 270 at 12, about an hour from now. Or it might even be happening now since they've already adjourned the House. But you can go over there and check it out. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much. It was good to have a nice, productive 100th episode, because that's what we're all about here. So I thank you for watching. We'll be back here tomorrow with episode number 101. We can do that, and then we'll move on from there. And again, anything that we're missing, anything you need us to cover, you send us an email, leave me a voicemail, and we'll be sure to look into it. There's a lot of pots on the fire, so to speak. So. Yes, 1:30 Mountain Time is that indecent exposure bill, House Bill 270 in House Judiciary and Rules. Thank you so much for the comments, everybody. We will see you tomorrow. Take care.
Her daddy started cutting up posters that said Rango and Redneck Reward. Her mama started sending up prayers, begging mercy from the Lord. Well, I stole her away, but I ain't what they say. Didn't tie her up and drag her off. But now I'm an outlaw to the in-laws.
This bill, I think, it puts a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.